Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome to another edition and the comeback episode of Area 11. I am one of your hosts, Kyle Keka, and the other host right above me is
Matt Baitler. You know how you guys feeling? We back. We
we
back.
have we have a very special episode today. We have a couple guests that are basketball aficionados, two of my best friends back from college. If you guys want to introduce yourselves to the Area 11 fan base.
Ronnie, after you.
All right. So guys, I'm Ronnie Miller. Known Kyle for a couple years, and just excited to come on and talk ball. We got season start tomorrow, and happy to be here, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
No problem.
And I am Josh Bragg. Some people call me Shua. Some people call me Shua Buckets. It's all the same to me. But I've been into basketball ever since I was a wannabe NBA 2K GM, and I'm glad to be on the show today. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Matt, for having us.
Oh, thank you. How you guys feeling?
Feeling great.
Yeah, excited for the season tomorrow, man.
Definitely.
Honestly, keep forgetting it's tomorrow because it usually starts on a Thursday. So
yeah,
that's true.
But yeah.
All right. Well, we are very excited to have you guys on. I'm sure that we will hear a lot of good perspectives today on a lot of different things. We had a great episode today. We're going to talk about a couple of things that happened in the offseason, and then we're going to make our award predictions for the season as well as our championship picks. And then we are also going to be talking about some favorite Bulls players of the 2010s, which is going to be super exciting as well. And then to cap it all up, we're going to be doing a music bracket for the one and only Post Malone. So before we get to all that, I think we should start with one of the biggest things that happened in the NBA offseason. One of the best players in the NBA and one of the best players of the past at least 30 years, Giannis Extension, superstar for the Milwaukee Bucks, recently agreed to a 5-year Supermax extension with the Milwaukee Bucks. It has been seen as a win, not only for himself, but also for the league at large. So I'm going to start with Ronnie. What are your thoughts on the Giannis Supermax extension heading into this year?
So obviously big win for the Bucks. Giannis is probably the best player in their franchise history, which kind of says a lot. Seeing Robertson and some of those.
Lou Alcindor.
Yeah, Lou Alcindor.
Alcindor, is that how you say it?
Yes, that's how I say it.
Shameful.
Pre-Kareem. Sorry, I'm good.
Yes, pre-Kareem. But yeah, Giannis is just amazing. MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. He's had such success since he came in. It seems like he's had a 10-year career already, but he's still so young. I do think part of it is a little overblown, though, just from a trend that we're seeing where you can ask for an extension, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be spending the entirety of that term in a city. But it's one less thing that Bucks management has to worry about, and Bucks fans have to worry about going forward.
That's all true. I think personally, their front office, I think, has shown Giannis that they are committed to winning. And I think that with the addition of Jrue Holiday as well, I think that's going to give Giannis another player alongside Chris Middleton to hopefully compete for a championship. And I think that from the league's perspective, I think it shows that the collective bargaining agreement works because one of the most recent CBAs was allowing superstars to sign Supermax extensions in their home cities. If you're not like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, like a super big market, that's what the Supermax is designed for. And it shows that kind of deal works. So I'm really happy for Giannis and for the league at large.
Yeah. And I think the jury is still out on if Supermaxes are, like the right move for the league, just because of the intent of them. And like the 5-year Supermax was to keep these homegrown stars at home instead of, like bolting to LA like Anthony Davis did or forced his way to, and, like keeping Paul George in Indiana and that sort of thing. So I think the jury is still out in terms of where the Supermax lies in the CBA. But I think that this is definitely a point in, like the small markets direction where, if he didn't sign this and he did make his way to the Heat or something of that nature, then I think it really would have made it seem like, the Supermax was not worth it. And Ronnie mentioned that it's been a long time coming for Giannis, and I just want to share what is my favorite video of Giannis. I remember when he was drafted. If I can share my screen here, let me see. This is my favorite video clip of Giannis.
Oh
here.
yeah, I know this one.
This is when he was being drafted. So yeah, I'm just gonna let him take it away from here. Hopefully the audio is loud enough.
For your career? All of the NBA players. Anybody in the NBA that you like to watch and maybe emulate? I like Magic Johnson and give it around.
Oh, that was not as long as I thought it was gonna be, but it's just amazing to see how he came from that skinny Greek player in the second league to two-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and maybe champion one day. We'll see. But
He's come a long way.
yeah, he's come a long way.
Matt, what are your thoughts? Matt.
Oh yeah, my audio cut out. My bad.
Oh no, you good.
Yeah, no, just to kind of echo what they said, I completely agree. My thing is that I always talk about is that I feel that he is one of the best players on the Bucks as of now, probably in history as well too. And my main thing is that he needs help. And I know like this year they probably in previous years, with Giannis on the team, they had some good supporting pieces. And this year I feel like they definitely made a leap forward. But kind of to add to his, 5-year max, I feel like he needs help. And not just by getting, players like they did it this year, but like true superstars. And again, they're in the East, so you don't need a really a big three to compete as if you're out in the West. All you need is one more person to help them out, and if you're lucky, you can get a third person to that roster. But if they really want to compete and go far and get over like that hump, I feel like he needs some help. But I do think he deserved it. He's a great player, and yeah.
Great person too. Just that mindset of him really claiming Milwaukee as like his second home.
Mhm.
I think that it was an article that I read not too long ago about how he considers Milwaukee to be kind of in a lot of ways kind of similar to his home in Greece. And I thought that because Giannis is so family centric, and for him to really consider Milwaukee that kind of like home base, I just know that Miami Heat fans everywhere are probably crying right now because they probably thought they had a chance at Giannis, but I don't think Giannis is really built like that. I don't think that he's built in terms of wanting to pair up with
Different.
other. Yeah, he's built different. That kind of mindset, just growing up in a completely different culture. I think that has allowed him to kind of come into the league with this sense of, I feel like I'm loyal to this franchise and I want to deliver them a championship or multiple championships. I think the jury is still out on whether Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton can be, championship level players in terms of supporting Giannis as he is a great, phenomenal player. But I think this is a step forward, and I think, like Ronnie said, I think it's going to be a huge sigh of relief for the franchise and for the city in general. So I think it's a win.
I think we should go further in depth in terms of their offseason. It was obviously an interesting one because we thought it was going to look a lot different after, they looked like they had Bogdanovich, but they didn't. So, and now they don't have a second round pick as well. So overall, personally, I think that I would grade their offseason kind of like a C+, B-. I think it's really strong in the short term because I think Drew Holiday is a significant upgrade over Eric Bledsoe.
I agree.
Not only in the regular season, I think he's a little bit better, but in the playoffs, I think they'll really make a difference because when it comes to the playoffs, I feel like the good coaches will target the players that have like significant flaws in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Eric Bledsoe is a good example of that, where we all know of him as this really tough, tenacious, defensive guy, like kind of guy, and he makes all defensive first teams for a reason. But teams will just sag. Like Nick Nurse can just sag off of him in the playoffs and just pack the line against Giannis, and that's what the Heat did as well. So So I think that Drew Holiday gives them a little bit more offense, but he's actually even a defensive upgrade over Eric Bledsoe as well.
Mhm.
And just in general, I think the rest of the moves I was not too fond of. I would have loved Bogdan for them, but obviously that didn't happen, and they ended up signing guys like Bobby Portis and DJ Augustine, and wasn't a big fan of those moves. But I was wondering what you guys thought of them. So
See, I kind of disagree with you. I kind of look at what they had last season, and I say, what did they really lose? Like, what did they really get worse at? They lost George Hill.
that I
They
think that's a
lost
big loss there.
Bledsoe. And I think they upgraded it for both of those guys. I think Drew Holiday is an upgrade, and I actually think DJ Augustine is significantly better than George Hill at this stage of their careers. And bench pieces, I actually like the Bobby Portis trade, or the Bobby
What?
Portis signing. I mean,
Crazy.
I think that it's exactly what Bobby's meant for. He was never meant to be a big minutes starter. He was never meant to like completely carry or anchor a defense. But if you put him next to Brook Lopez or you put him next to Giannis, they can kind of cover up for his defensive shortcomings, and he can be instant offense. I think he's a more perimeter friendly, like Enes Kanter type. Like Enes Kanter, you sign him only for his bench offense. He's not going to contribute much else. I think Bobby's much the same way, but he can get his offense both from the perimeter and the paint.
Sorry, Matt, go.
No, yeah, I would say I can see both sides, and I think sometimes, you know, players pan out differently when you get them around other players. And I think that, Bobby Portis in the past years, we've seen him and he's kind of been this player. But, I feel like, now that he's um on the team like the Bucks, it can kind of give them that surge to kind of push forward and transform to something that we've never seen before. So I guess it all depends on
Yeah.
how player chemistry is, and how the season pans out, and how they move the ball and all that. So should be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think Bud gets the best out of his players, especially in the regular season. So I think it. I wasn't a fan of the setting, but I can definitely see it work. But I think the thing that will kill them in the future, and that's why I think it was a good move in the short term, is the fact that they gave up pretty much every draft pick they they had to
Yeah,
get Drew
yeah.
Holiday. So Drew Holiday is a special player, but I mean, you just look through that laundry list of picks that they gave up, and you're starting to
I
be like,
think
wow.
I think at that point you don't frame it as you gave up those picks for Drew Holiday. It's you gave up those picks to keep
Yeah.
Giannis around.
Yeah.
And I think
very
that's
true.
how Bucks management and Bucks fans are gonna like. That's how they're going to justify it, and that's how they're gonna
Yeah.
come to terms with it.
Mm.
Now, it's not something I would recommend for every team around the league,
Yeah.
just to keep a superstar. But when you have one of the top 5 players in the league,
Yeah.
you do everything you can to keep him happy and keep him where he's at.
Yeah. And
Very-
it definitely looks a lot better that they, signed Giannis to the Supermax. And maybe it was conditional upon the trade or whatnot. We'll never know that, but definitely looks a lot better now.
Very good points. I think we can all agree that Milwaukee's going to definitely be a top 2, top 3 seed, probably top 2. I think that, when it comes down to the regular season, we all know that they're going to make the playoffs and be a top seed, but are they going to be able to take that next step? So we'll definitely see about that. Speaking of player chemistry, like Matt was talking about a minute and a half earlier, we're going to transition to the Detroit Pistons offseason.
Man.
So just to give a brief outline before we go into our conversation, the Pistons, who've been one of those middling franchises where they've been kind of good, kind of bad in recent years. They, either make the playoffs as an 8 or 7 seed, get bounced out, or miss the playoffs completely. They had a very busy offseason. It has been widely recognized that they've had a decent draft, but their other moves have been listed as either highly questionable or kind of in between. So for this one, because Matt is a native of Detroit, I'm going to give him the ball to talk about his hometown team for a second. So Matt, you want to take the floor?
Prior to the draft, we've seen numerous, mock drafts. And as a fan, I really wanted LaMelo Ball. Come draft day, as you guys know, that didn't happen. He goes to a team where they have 10 other guards.
Buzz City.
Why? I don't know. But he's there. I honestly, and it's not even me like being biased because I'm a Pistons fan, but I really do feel like him going to Detroit and having Derrick Rose as a mentor, um, and him kind of only being like him and Derrick Rose being like the two main guards on that team, I felt like his progress may have come faster. But you know, I'm satisfied with our 7th round pick. I think we had the 7th round pick. Killian Hayes, you know what I'm saying, he's a decent player. So far in preseason, he was hooping over in France. I think he's like 19 years old.
Yeah, he's young.
He's super young. Yeah.
So I mean, you know what I'm saying, he has potential. He has room to grow. And like I said, I feel like Derrick Rose being your mentor, like you really can't lose when it comes to that. It's Derrick Rose, for crying out loud. So that's that. As far as our off season, I think I read something where our Troy Weaver, which is the GM, made a whole bunch of he got a whole bunch of trades with under like 72 hours or something, like 14 or 20 something trades in 72 hours. That's nuts.
It was a whirlwind.
Exactly. And also, he I think only 4 players that remain from last year's roster onto this year, and everybody's completely new. So that's that. And my last thing is we have a lot of big men. Now I don't know what the plan is for that because I thought that they would have been gone by now, but it seems that they're not. We had LiAngelo Ball. I don't know if that was just for hype or what, but they got rid of him. I think he would have turned out decent, but they thought otherwise. If I had to give it a grade, I don't know, man. Maybe a B minus. Getting Jeremy Grant, getting Mason Plumlee.
Oh,
Um,
it's a high grade right there.
just because from what I'm seeing so far in this preseason, obviously it's preseason, but the ball movement from this year to last year seems smoother, and everybody seems to play their part better than last year. Nothing really seems forced. And again, like it's preseason, but I feel like you completely having a new roster and the way they're playing so far, it shows something. And I just like it always in the preview, like last year and previous years, everything just seemed choppy and nothing really seemed to move smoothly. And I don't the Pistons are always that team that finished like a 9th, 8th seed, 10th seed, and every year we get for draft picks wise, we always get the 7th, 8th, 9th pick, and it's not high, but it's not low, and we end up getting a casual a casual player. So yeah man.
And you mentioned that they're always around the 9 seed or so. I think after this offseason, you no longer have to worry about that because they're going to be even worse. They're going to be they're going to drop down to like 10, 11, 12 and still not get the first pick. So
exactly.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that they have a ton of big men. And yeah, that's true. But the one big man that they don't have and they should have right now is Christian Wood. And the fact that they didn't keep that man is probably one of the more head scratching kind of decisions, considering he didn't sign a massive contract by any means, and maybe he didn't want to stay in Detroit, but they just let him go, barely any effort. And instead, they signed Jeremy Grant to $20 million a year, about on average, I think. Which, I mean, I like Jeremy Grant, but $20 million a year, and I'll let the others talk before we go into this last part, but. I don't even want to mention them yet, but there's just one other center that we'll get to at the end. So definitely. Go ahead, Ronnie or Kyle.
Yeah, Ronnie, you go ahead. I want to make a point later.
Okay, so Pistons. Individually, I like most of the players they have on the roster. As a unit, I don't think they make a ton of sense. I think pretty much every guy they have could be a average to above average role player on a halfway decent team. But when you expect like Jeremy Grant, for example, I think the reason he went to Detroit is because he wanted a increased offensive load that he was not going to get in Denver. And maybe he'll prove us wrong, but Jeremy's just not somebody I want taking 15, 16 shots a game. I think that is a losing formula, especially when you have veterans, even though they may not be there for the long term, like Derek and Blake, who are vastly more talented than Jeremy, at least on the offensive end. They both have their shortcomings on the defensive end. But I think as a Pistons fan, you just have to watch Killian. Like that's the sole reason for watching
right there.
And as a Bulls fan, I know how that feels. Like I've been watching just for Zach for the past couple of years, and I think Killian is really
Kobe.
Well. I think even he means more to the Pistons than Kobe does to the Bulls, because I think going forward, he's going to be their like one asset that they can really hang on to, and either he's going to generate buzz for other teams, or they're going to think he's good enough to keep around for a long time. And so really the Pistons season, it's all about Killian. What can Derek do to bring Killian along and have Killian be a respectable starting guard by the end of the season?
No, that's 100% correct. I'm glad you said that because even I don't know if you guys heard, but before the draft, they were comparing him like they call him like a baby Harden in the way he plays.
Absolutely.
So it's and I didn't know until like I saw footage that he's a lefty. So that's interesting, and I'm like he has good handles. So we'll see what
he's got that step back move.
Yeah.
So regarding the Pistons, those dear Pistons. So here's the thing. I think their offseason, in my perspective, was the pure definition of a mixed bag. I love their draft. I think outside of Killian Hayes, I love Sadiq Bey. I think him being out of Nova, how they're just such a great program. I think he's going to be definitely at least somewhat NBA ready, as kind of like a sharp shooting, defensive minded kind of guy. I think the Plumlee addition, while Wood subtracting.
He said it. He said the words.
He
said it.
What did I say?
Said the words.
Said
the words.
That might have been the worst offseason move I think for any team.
God.
Plumlee, and I will explain why. Plumlee is a nice player, but $25 million for Mason Plumlee, where Christian Wood didn't get that much more money in Houston. Christian Wood is the definition of what it means to be a modern NBA big man, and Plumlee
was just getting started.
Yes, Plumlee is not that.
Plumlee is like 31 years old too.
Yes.
So.
I think he might be a good locker room presence for those younger guys, but in terms of talent, they obviously lost there. The Jeremy Grant thing, I think the jury's still out on that a little bit. I do like Jeremy Grant though. And in this era where shooting, although he has to get a little bit better, and defense are at a premium, I think that he is one of those better 3-and-D guys in the league. So I think that might be a decent addition even at $60 million. And I think he will grow as well.
80 million, right? 80 million, I think.
I thought it was 60. I thought it was 60 over 3.
I think it's 80 over 4, I believe, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong.
Could be wrong.
So, and he's still decently young too. So I think he will develop more. So I would have to give that probably like a solid B grading. I do like Jeremy Grant a lot.
It is 60 over 3, not
okay.
80 over 4.
And something that we haven't talked about yet, they lost Luke Kennard. And Luke Kennard was just starting to come into his own. Now, they did get the 19th overall pick, which turned out to be Sadiq Bey. But if you're going to subtract Luke Kennard, who's already a known NBA commodity, for a rookie who was not a top 5 consensus guy, that's risky in its own right as well, at least in my opinion. I mean, because Kennard was a 15-point per game, 40% from 3 kind of guy. So I think that was head scratching as well. If I had to grade the Pistons overall offseason, I'd probably give it like a C+. I think they made some good moves, but I think overall what they did in terms of subtracting Plumlee adding Plumlee and subtracting Wood was just devastating.
Yeah, I gotta jump in there real quick. Well, first I'll get to my boy Plumlee in a second, but I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna give them an F grade for the offseason. I think it was absolutely atrocious, and I'm not really one for hot takes or just saying outrageous things, but I can't see any positives with this offseason. They lost Christian Wood, and again, this is a team that's been in that really no man's land of mediocrity for decades now. And I think this hasn't really done much to change that, but it'd still make them worse off because if you look at, you basically have like two paths to getting better in the NBA. You either tank or you acquire assets. And I think the Thunder are a good example of that latter category. But I think just the moves they've made this offseason neither have accumulated assets or made them tank, like Sixers level. And I think Mason Plumlee is the symbol of that, where he's the kind of player where, yeah, you can put him out there. He'll do some things. He'll set some screens. He'll grab some rebounds. But $8 million a year, it's not that much, but you're basically just throwing that money away because you can find that type of player anywhere. I remember in 2016, there was a mass amount of cash being thrown around. And I remember some significant centers getting a ton of money who really didn't do anything, and they're all kind of the same, whether it's Bismack, Biyombo, Tipame, Mozgov, and I believe Cristiano Felicio was that offseason too.
Felicio.
We all saw that panned out, and that's what this deal reminds me of. But Plumlee, as you mentioned, might bring that locker room presence to him, and that may be true because he's, the one positive that I guess he has going for him is that he's a gym rat kind of guy. He's the first one in, last one out.
He's a good guy. Absolutely.
In other words, he's just a random white center that you can find pretty much anywhere to set screens and do a bunch of random stuff like that. And wow, I just thought this was basically throwing out money because 3 years you're going to look back and be like, okay, what was the point of that? Like, it's just to spend money basically. But yeah, I give the Pistons offseason an F because they didn't accumulate assets like the Thunder did, and they didn't make any moves to even get in playoff contention in my mind. So
you're like Skip Bayless talking about LeBron.
I do not want to be compared to Skip Bayless, but I just had to mention that this is a really poor
or should I say Drip Bayless? All right, moving on to the next headline of our podcast. We're going to be talking about the biggest trade I think that happened in the offseason. That was Russell Westbrook for John Wall and a first-round pick. Westbrook gets to be reunited with what's his name? Scott
Brooks.
Yes. Sorry, the name was escaping me. Scott Brooks, former Thunder coach, and John Wall gets to pair alongside James Harden, at least for now. But I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. Yeah. So what your overall kind of temperature is on the trade and how it works for both sides or doesn't work for both sides. So this time I'm going to start out with Josh.
Oh, you're going to start with me? Okay. So Ronnie and I have touched upon this before in a group chat, and I'm just not the biggest fan. I haven't for years. My opinions on basketball have changed in terms of what I think is valuable in a player and how you win basketball games, basically. But the one thing that I don't think has changed at all, really, is the fact that I have never been high on Russell Westbrook as a player. For me, it's just I can't hear Matt, by the way, if you're talking. But
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Yeah. He was mouthing the words. I see. So, yeah, I've never been a fan of Russell Westbrook as a player. I see the appeal in terms of how he's just such a physical player that if you're on the court against him, you feel him every single night. But I just think the decision-making has never improved from when he started as a rookie. I think the turnovers have always been really high. And the thing that really gets to me is not even the regular season aspect of his inefficiency, but the fact that his poor decision-making makes it into the playoffs. And as I mentioned, good coaches find a way to target the players who have significant flaws. And I think you can really just pull out the strategy of Lou Dorting Westbrook and just sagging off of him and just playing 4 and 5 essentially, where you just let him bomb from outside because he will take those shots and he will miss them, unfortunately. But I don't think it's all. I think with a deal like this, these players were on similar contracts and we're in similar situations where they're kind of disgruntled. And I think a change of scenery can definitely help in these types of situations. I think Westbrook will be in better position on the Wizards, and vice versa for John Wall. But I called them both losers a few weeks back in this deal, and I still feel that way, even though I'm not. I can see how it might work out.
Okay. So before anybody else jumps in, I want to put my points out there about this trade. I've put a lot of thought in this trade, and my opinions have probably changed on this specific trade at least 5 or 6 times since it happened a couple weeks ago. I think that it is a risky trade, especially for Houston, with John Wall not playing in a regular season game since 2018. I can see a world, however, in which this is a win for both sides, and I'll explain my reasoning why. First, with Houston, assuming they keep James Harden, which I'm not sure if they will.
It's a big assumption.
John Wall, in my opinion, and this is assuming he stays healthy as well. See, there's already a lot of big what ifs here. I think John Wall might be a more natural fit alongside James Harden, and the reason why I say that is because, like what Josh was saying about how Russell Westbrook tries to force things a lot. Wall is not exactly the most efficient guy as well, but what Wall does bring is a more enhanced ability to find open teammates. He is a better passer, in my opinion, than Westbrook is when he's healthy. Even though they have similar assist numbers, it's also because Westbrook's usage rate is so much higher than Wall's from the perspective of their overall careers. And I think that Wall, especially because they still have PJ Tucker, they still have Eric Gordon. I feel like John Wall, if he stays healthy, is going to be able to find those guys more while also not forcing the issue as much like Westbrook does. With that being said, I think that at this point in their careers, I think Westbrook is still probably the better overall player, especially because he's also available more than Wall is. And I think in Washington, you get a box office backcourt that is going to be amazing to see once the fans start coming back. And it's going to reinvigorate interest in the franchise. And I think that he might also be a good culture reset as well. Him alongside Bradley Beal, trying to keep Bradley Beal healthy. So I can see how it could be a win for both sides, but I can also see it blowing up in each team's faces. So that's my overall opinion on it.
So, like Josh was saying, we kind of had a bit of an argument about this off the pod over the past few weeks, especially when it first dropped, news first dropped. And I found myself in the unusual position of defending Westbrook. I pretty much throughout my whole life, I have not been a huge fan of Russell Westbrook, but I think that just the way the league has changed, where three-point shooting is at such a premium, people are starting to kind of forget how good every other aspect of Westbrook's game is. And I understand the argument that he has a high usage rate, but I would struggle, or I just think it's unrealistic to find a lead guard who averages 10 plus assists, 8, 9, 10 assists, who doesn't have a usage rate like well into the mid to high 20s, even low 30s. That's what you bring them there to do. If you have a player who's a good decision maker, you want the ball in their hands as often as possible. If you have a player who can get shots for other players, then you want them to do that. It's the argument of, to me, it's the same argument of Harden when he had his MVP season where he was like 30 points, 10 assists, when he was like really playing point guard, and Russ was still in OKC. If it may not be the best looking style of ball, but if you can put up those numbers and do it in a way that leads to winning, if you can win while playing that way, then I think you have to try to do that. I think that in this scenario, I would rather be Houston just because of the talent that they have on the roster. I think that they will be a mid-tier playoff team. I don't see them like reaching for the top 3 seeds by any means, and I don't really see them falling any lower than like 6. I just don't think that some of those other teams like Utah. I don't think they have what it takes to jump the Rockets, because with the addition of Wood and Boogie, I think Boogie's looked pretty good in the preseason so far. They are just in a better situation as a team. But I actually think that Washington is getting the better player. I think that at this stage, Westbrook is still a better player than Wall. And I would say that their playmaking is comparable. I would give the edge to Westbrook in athleticism, while John is a better shooter, shooting like somewhere in the mid 30s from three, I think, which is miles better than what Westbrook did last year in Houston. But I just think that the fit with Harden last year was just bad. It didn't really work that well for anyone, but I think we've kind of gone too far the other way as saying that Westbrook just can't be productive or he can't be efficient. Just the year prior, he was putting up 10 assists and just 30 points a game in OKC on a team that was kind of talent deficient other than him. And so him playing with Beal, I think it's just a better fit for everyone involved. And I think both teams do end up winning in this scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I know that for a fact. Wizards fans are happy, and I like you said. I feel like Westbrook is the better player, and I feel that he maybe how I was thinking like maybe the kind of maybe it's a humbling experience for him because he just came from Houston, playing with Harden and have the luxury of playing with other like top tier players, and now going to a team where it's like the limelight is on you. I mean, besides Bradley Beal, but it's Westbrook we're talking about. So, I feel like he'll also provide that veteran role, and what I've seen so far, he's been helping the young guys, talking to the young guys, and kind of giving them hope and courage and saying something like if somebody falls or something happens, like he's there right there to pick them up and all that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it should be interesting seeing how both of these teams pan out. Um, I'm not the hugest, Westbrook fan, but I do think that he's athletic. The man can ball. It's just sometimes, his decision making isn't always there. But I feel that again, being with the Wizards and being in the system, it's a new team, it's a new year. So I feel like every player that goes to a new team is destined to do something different than what they did last year with a previous team. Um, John Wall, on the other hand, I feel that, he does have better pieces around him. Um, but like Ronnie was saying, I don't see them being a top four team in the West. It's not happening. And that's if John Wall stays healthy this whole season. We don't know. But if they can stay healthy, either I say like six, seven, or eighth around that spot. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I had Houston as my seventh seed. I they're such a hard team to predict though, because if James Harden, who we'll talk about in just a
Yeah.
second, if James Harden stays, that's obviously good for them. But if they trade him, you never know what kind of package they're going to get in return, especially with Harden being a top 5, top 6 guy. It's really hard in those scenarios to get back equal at least value. Um, so it's going to be interesting. I think we can all agree that this was a very fascinating trade that we won't really know definitively who either won or lost, or if it was even, until the season actually starts. But I think it was a very interesting scenario for both guys that are about the same age, have been kind of compared in the past, but are also kind of different at what they do. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Any final thoughts before we move on to James?
Just on the Rockets in general, I think that it's pretty much inevitable to where this goes now. Where I think I think they peaked when they were 27 straight missed threes away from basically a championship. I think that's when they peaked as a team. And that team was one of the best teams in NBA history, and they just happened to face the best team in NBA history. Um, I think it's just all been downhill since then. I think that Westbrook was a clear downgrade from Chris Paul, who's still a top 15 player in the league. And I think that now that Morey is gone and they have this new owner who's let's be honest, just kind of a jackass. And he definitely seems like the cheap type. I think that ownership is hugely important, and I think that it's only going to go downhill from here. And Harden is basically mentally checked out at this point and wants to play in a contender. And I just don't see any way that this team can win the finals this year or in the short-term future. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think. We are going to move on to our final headline that we're going to talk about before we get into our NBA award predictions. Very excited for that. Obviously, we're going to be talking about James Harden and how he wants out of Houston at the time of this recording. He has said publicly ever since he came back to the Rockets that he's focused on staying here, but I think we all know that he actually does want out. I think I saw a report a couple days ago that Houston is actually still trying to figure out multiple trade scenarios for him. But it's also been reported that because of his contract and the way that he is as a player, it might be a little bit hard to trade him. So this time I'm going to head it off to who have we not called on yet? Maybe Matt to talk about the James Harden thing first. Then we'll go around the room.
You know, kind of going off of what we talking about Westbrook. I'm not that big of a Harden fan. And I think I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but when I saw that Westbrook was joining Harden in Houston, I was like, this is not going to work out. Two ball dominant heavy players, um, and you know, I don't know if that's it. Just they're both athletic. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like they're not um team players. Is that the word to say? Uh, and so when this whole thing went down, Harden, it looks like Harden wants out. And originally, like when it first came out, he said he wanted to go to the Nets. The Sixers was an option. And I think one more, but his main priority was the Nets. And um, it looks good, but really, if that trade was to happen, you have to ask yourself, like, how is this going to work? And if he does go to the Nets going to be giving up half of their team for Harden. And that's going to be crucial because these past 3 years, the Nets, as of now, they're a pretty good looking team. They have young talent, and they're not real big names, but they've managed well in the past 2-3 years. And now that this year they have KD and Kyrie on the court, might be the spark that they need to go farther in the playoffs. But I'm just not convinced that if they add Harden to the mix, um, will that what would that look like, and how will that affect the team and the chemistry and all that. So yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Matt, you said that if they were to trade for Harden, they'd basically have to give up everything they have. And it's definitely true. They'd have to give up quite a bit.
Right.
But the two things that they would not give up, and the most important thing there, is Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And if they have James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving all on the same team, we've seen in the past that you can fill in those gaps. It's a lot like, LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh teaming up, where they just barely fit it under the cap, and then they had nobody else on that team. But then slowly over the years, through exceptions and veteran minimum signings at the deadline and whatnot, they slowly built a team into a two-time champion. And I think that if the Nets were to get James Harden, no matter who they gave up, as long as they have James Harden, KD, and Kyrie, then they are an instant favorite in the East for me. And even when saying that, their defense would be utterly atrocious. It'd be a revolving door in that team. But the fact of the matter is that they have three of the most transcendent offensive players we've seen in the game of basketball on one team. And you can stagger those minutes. Steve Nash, I'm sure, could figure out a way to make it work. But the number one thing that would hold that team back, of course, is the defense. But the personalities for me is what is the Nets' biggest problem. It's that you never know when Kyrie's going to go full out flat earth mode, or KD's going to pull up his burner accounts and start some drama. And you never know when James Harden's going to go to the nearest strip club in Brooklyn. I feel like that might be a problem. So Yeah, and it's a lot of dominant personalities on one team. I think it would work out. They'd be the favorites in the East, but it's pretty easy to see why that might implode there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm really interested to see what Ronnie has to say about this too, because Ronnie really wanted to hit this hard heading into the podcast. So I'm gonna let him talk now.
So I am someone who really does like Harden. I just think that he is one of the most skilled players that we have in our game today. One of the most
Ever.
prolific scorers ever. Yeah. And to me, the question of Harden is, he's so good at what he does. How much do you let him just take over?
Yeah.
And I think D'Antoni made the mistake of letting him completely take over. I kind of think that James Harden for the past, 5-6 years has been the entire Houston Rockets team. Everything that has happened on the Rockets or anything that the Rockets have done has been because of James Harden. And I understand that it's a business, but I do, it does kind of rub me the wrong way that he's going about things this way, especially after learning about some of the freedoms he was afforded by management and coaches and stuff like
Way to
that.
put it.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
But as a player, like, you can't really ask for anything better than James Harden. His success is kind of varied, but it's been success. It's just to what level. And I think he understands that. He knows he's a top 5 player in this league, maybe top 3, depending on who you talk to. And he just wants the ring. He knows what it's like to be deep into the playoffs. He knows what it's like to be disappointed. And he just doesn't want it to end without a ring. And I think that I understand from his point of view why he wants to get out of Houston, because I think as currently constructed, Houston just is not going to give that to him this year or in the near future. But it also takes 2 parties to pull off a trade. And I don't think that Brooklyn is very keen on a James Harden trade. I wouldn't be personally if I was in charge of Brooklyn's roster. The one caveat I will throw in, though, is everyone has talked about what a Brooklyn and Houston trade would look like. It's probably centered around Karis LeVert and pieces. LeVert is a great young player in the league. I'm very high on Karis LeVert. He's someone I kind of wish the Bulls would go after in trade deals. Just kind of throw a couple of young players at the Nets. But they have such a stacked roster, it doesn't even make sense for them to do anything like that. I really like the supporting pieces they've put around KD and Kyrie. Jared Allen, he's, I think, severely underrated. And I think Kenny Atkinson would kind of tell you the same.
Oh, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Kenny Atkinson. Fired for playing Jared Allen.
Playing Jared Allen over DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah. But you can just go on and on. Joe Harris, Karooks. They just have players who can play a role and play it well. And I think that really, I think they have enough star power with KD and Kyrie. I don't think they need any more. I think they can get it done. I think they can win a title. I think it revolves largely around health, though. I think that Kevin Durant and Kyrie personally will be able to make things work. I think that they kind of have an understanding of each other. They're both kind of eccentric personalities, but I think that can work out. I think that's been a little bit overblown. The one way that I would entertain a James Harden trade, though, if I was Brooklyn, was if it was Harden for Kyrie 1-for-1, and that's all. I don't think either team would do that. I definitely don't think Houston would do that, especially if they can pull off a trade with Philadelphia, which I think they probably could. But
Ben Simmons.
Yeah, for Ben Simmons, 1-for-1 again. I think just at this stage in their career, you would take a chance on Ben and bet that he's going to come out and be a better player than Kyrie. And I just don't see any need to shake up what the Nets have going. If I was Philly, I could understand why you would do it. James,
Especially with Daryl there.
Yeah, especially with Daryl there. James is, like we said, top 3, top 5 player in the league. Pair him with Embiid, and you have role players, and it's self-explanatory. You automatically put yourself in title contention. They're kind of on the fringes of that already with Ben and Embiid, and I think some of the moves they've made with Seth Curry and some of those guys, Danny Green, those were great moves, and they've kind of reshaped that roster over the past couple months. But if you can go get James, you do that. But right now, it's gonna. I think that Brooklyn can offer the better package for James. I just don't think they will. I think that eventually it'll end up being Philly if James gets his way and go into one of those two spots.
I agree. I think that if I'm Brooklyn, I'm not touching James Harden. I'm not. Steve Nash already has a tough enough job managing Kyrie and KD, especially Kyrie, in terms of just how big of stars they are. If they add James Harden, Steve Nash is automatically going to have the hardest job in all of potentially in all of pro sports. I mean, managing all those 3 superstar level talents would be an almost gargantuan task for, especially for a rookie head coach. For as knowledgeable as Steve Nash is, he's still a rookie head coach. He still has to prove himself. I agree with you, Ronnie. I think Philly makes a lot more sense. I think that a straight up trade for Ben Simmons, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that would work. I think Philly would have to throw in a little bit more, but I think structurally, you pair James Harden with Joel Embiid, that pairing to me makes sense. I think it does, especially if they don't have to give up Seth Curry, who's quickly developed as one of the best shooters in the entire sport. So I listen to Shannon Sharp a lot on Undisputed with Skip Bayless, and he's one of my favorite sports personalities. I think he's developed into a great commentator on live television. And he brought up a good point about James Harden. He said that it takes a very special person to have power and not abuse it. And I think to all you guys' points, I agree. I think Harden kept taking and taking and taking, and Houston kept giving and giving and giving. And he did not put a limit on himself. I mean, he has been the Rockets ever since he got there back in 2012. One of the worst trades in history. Ever since he came there, it's been all James Harden. And they've come close, but they still have not even gotten to a championship yet. So I think if you're James Harden, you really have to ask yourself what you want. Do you want to win, or do you want to put up stats? Because that's kind of my perception about James Harden. I know that you guys may disagree, but I kind of like my perception of James Harden is that sure, he might want to win, but where do his basketball ethics truly lie? And that's going to be really interesting, I think, in the next couple seasons for him, whether he has a chance to actually win a championship. So I think that'll be interesting. So I think that his best fit would be Philly. They would have to give up Ben Simmons, who does everything well on the court except shoot, which would be detrimental. But to add a guy like Harden who can give you 35, 40, 50 on any given night, that might be worth it. So it'll be very interesting. I think all of our points were definitely valid about that. So now that we've talked about the 4 major headlines, we talked about Giannis, the Pistons, the Westbrook Wall trade, and the beard, James Harden. We're going to go into our MVP, etc. award picks. So I'm going to start out with Coach of the Year, and we're going to build our way up. So who do you guys have as your Coach of the Year, and why? I think this is going to be interesting.
All right, I'll go first.
Yeah, Ronnie.
So for Coach of the Year, I have Doc Rivers. I think that based off of roster construction, Philly made a huge jump. And while now that's not necessarily Doc's, it's not anything Doc did, he's going to be the one to reap the benefits because it gives him the tools to succeed and have the team succeed. I think that Doc is someone who didn't. I think he kind of got the short end of the stick in LA. I think that they kind of had bigger problems than coaching, and you kind of hear some of the comments that Paul George has made and other players have made about adjustments or the way they were being used. And I think that some of the personalities didn't mesh in LA with Montrez and some of that kind of stuff. So I think that their problems were deeper than coaching. Not saying that Doc might not have been a part of it, but just the year before, we were talking about Doc as a Coach of the Year candidate with what he did with Lou Will and some of those guys that Shea, some of those guys that made it to the playoffs, or you know what I mean. And so I think that he has the talent to get deep into the playoffs, and I just think that they will take a step forward from where they have been the past couple of years.
All right. I have Monty Williams in Phoenix. I think Phoenix is a playoff team this year. I think that I actually have him as the 8th seed, and that might be a little bit low for a Coach of the Year candidate historically, but context I think is required because Phoenix has not been a good franchise the last several seasons. They really haven't had a truly good team. You can make the argument ever since Steve Nash really left. So I think that Monty Williams coming in as, I believe, his second year as coach, getting Chris Paul, pairing him with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, I think is going to take a huge leap forward. I think he's going to be in consideration for most improved player personally. I think Phoenix gets into the playoffs. Now, they will get destroyed by the Lakers, probably, if that happens. But I think regular season wise, I think Monty Williams is going to be able to craft a good enough, really good roster constructions, really good lineup constructions, and I think he's going to win Coach of the Year. Let's go to Josh. Who do you have as Coach of the Year?
So my Coach of the Year is also Doc Rivers. So good choice there, Ronnie. Basically, I don't. So basically, I don't like to read into Coach of the Year very much because it's very narrative driven, much like a lot of these awards. I don't think Doc Rivers is going to be the best coach this season by any means, but I think the Sixers are going to be better than expectations. I think the spacing is really going to help them out, as Ronnie kind of alluded to. And I've always thought Doc Rivers is a pretty good coach. I agree that I don't think coaching was at all the problem, like just the problem in LA. I think that I don't think you should overanalyze what happened to the Clippers in the playoffs. Yes, the Paul George missing 3 threes on the side of the backboard is pretty embarrassing. But I think that just the 2020 season in general, just because, we had this pandemic thing and teams weren't fully engaged after all the police brutality stuff went on. I think that especially applies to the Bucks, I think. But yeah, I think the bubble is just an anomaly. The Lakers obviously earned their title, but I wouldn't read too much into the Clippers' problems. Don't think there's many fundamental issues. And I think that they have the formula for playoff success. So anyways, back to Doc Rivers. I think he's a pretty decent coach. And I think that he's in prime position to win the award because the Sixers are going to be better than expected as long as, Simmons and Embiid stay healthy. I think that the spacing will really open up their games more. And I think that they will – I honestly think they'll be better positioned for the playoffs too. But just for some reason, it's a kind of a gut feeling. I think Doc Rivers will win it just because – we've seen all these other candidates. We kind of have expectations for Brad Stevens and Nick Nurse now and Bud. So I think that Doc Rivers in a new position, if he gets like a top 4 seed, I can definitely see it happening. So,
all right.
Yeah, that's my pick.
Matt, how about you? Who's your Coach of the Year?
My Coach of the Year, I have Eric Spoelstra. And the reason why I say this is because I feel like, he's proven year in, year out, leading his team to where they need to be. We've seen last year, obviously, they made it to the finals. And I think that when you can prove yourself with having, when we think of the Heat now, we think of them having one superstar, and that's Jimmy Butler, right? But everybody else we've seen, play real good last year. And I think his coaching scheme really made everybody shine and no one really outshine each other. Even when it came to bench players, I felt that they came in and did what they were supposed to do. Now obviously they didn't accomplish their goal and winning the whole thing, but hey, they got there, and it being in the bubble, that was already hard enough. And just to look at that Heat roster, I think is crazy. Because like I said, like they really don't have a lot of big names on that team. And for him to work with what he has and put the pieces together, like Josh was saying, like my gut feeling was going for Eric. So that's what I have.
All right, Coach of the Year. Those are our Coach of the Year picks. Let's move on to what do I want to move on to next? Let's go to Rookie of the Year. And I will start this time because I've not started one yet. I'm going to be a little selfish. I'm going to pick Obi Toppin as my Rookie of the Year. I think that
Toppin.
yes, Obi Toppin, and I have a primary reason why. I think that one, playing in New York, he's going to get a lot of media exposure, and two, I think he is one of the more NBA ready rookies. I think that he's going to step into a Knicks team that is still obviously not very good. So I think he's going to get a lot of minutes, not unlike some other rookies as well, like Anthony Edwards, Melo Ball, other guys like that. But I think especially just because Toppin's going to get so much exposure, I think that's going to be huge. I really like his game. I really liked him at Dayton. I've studied his game here and there. It seems like he's going to be a really impactful player from day one. So I got my man Obi. Let's move on to let's go to Josh. Who's your Rookie of the Year?
My Rookie of the Year. So basically, this pick kind of reminds me of what I'll get to in my MVP, but it's kind of a similar situation where I think the best player in the draft did not get picked first overall, and my best player in this draft is LaMelo Ball. I think that he is clearly the guy in my mind that if you look at this draft and you're like, okay, pick one person who's going to be a superstar, I think it's going to be him. I just think that he has that. He just has it going on offense where he can initiate everything and create offense. And the efficiency definitely isn't going to be there in his first season. I think he's going to shoot below like 50% true shooting. Like it's not going to be pretty there. But I think he's really going to show in a way that Trae Young did in terms of just really getting guys open and initiating offense, creating offense, even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Yeah, I think LaMelo is going to get there because he's also a nice rebounder for a guard. He's going to have the opportunity to put up some numbers. And I think he'll just win the narrative battle with all these flashy assists, kind of like Ja Morant did. Not only flashy, but they're actually good assists too. It's not like he's just fooling around. But no, I think LaMelo Ball is the best player in this draft. I think he'll be the best player when we're talking about this draft in 10 years. And even though he's on the Hornets, unfortunately, he is my pick. So.
All right. So one vote for Obi, one vote for Melo. Let's go to Ronnie next. Who do you got?
All right. So I get what Josh is saying about the highlights and LaMelo's going to be very flashy. He's gonna get the eyeballs. I also.
Oh, I know who this is going to be.
I also see what you're saying about Obi getting the exposure in New York. I think I got a guy who's going to get both of them, and that's going to be James Wiseman.
Okay.
I was expecting Patrick. I was expecting
Patrick.
No,
as
that would
much
have been
as
too homer.
I would love to pick Pat Will. No, I can't do it. It's going to be James Wiseman. Playing for the Warriors, who you can't name a hotter team over the past 10 years. I would say that their fan base has grown exponentially over the past 10 years. And so there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that team, especially with Curry coming back. He always draws eyeballs. And I think that when you look at basketball highlights, you are looking for dunks. And I think James Wiseman is going to deliver those in a big way. His role on the team, I don't know if he's going to start the season in the starting lineup, but I definitely believe he will be there probably before the end of January, if I had to guess. I just think that his skill set is perfect for what they do. I think that he's going to set screens, he's going to rim run, he's going to catch lobs, and he's going to block shots, all of which are very valuable in today's game. And I think that he's a little underrated when it comes to his shooting touch. He's not going to be a sniper or anything, but I think that he has the ability to hit mid-range pick and pop jumpers, and I think over time he'll be able to stretch that out to three. I think he may be able to hit some jumpers in the corner off the catch, which gives him an added element. especially when you consider what he can do on the defensive end. I think he's going to foul a lot at the beginning, but he's going to send some shots into the 15th row where there's no fans, but they'll still go off camera. And I just think that he's going to be a fun player to watch, and he's going to do it on a winning team, which I think voters will take into account.
He's built like a statue too.
He is.
He's got broad shoulders. He's certainly got an NBA ready body.
Yeah.
I do like his game a lot too. And Matt, who's your rookie of the year pick?
My rookie of the year, I have Melo Ball. I think the dude is a freak, and I think just seeing his progression from Chino to now is ridiculous. Even like I feel like his growth spurt, that was crazy as it is too, but I feel like I'm kind of glad he didn't go number one, because I look at it as that makes him play even harder, because he know he didn't get the number one spot, so that's going to make him show out even more. And I think now in preseason we're starting to see just glimpses of what he's able to do. Now obviously this first season, I mean, he's not going to go crazy, but I think he's definitely a player that's going to be a good floor general and a scorer. And not to compare him to Lonzo, but we were all hyped about Lonzo when he came into the league, and he kind of, performed not to what we thought. But I think that Melo has I don't know, he's more, to me, he's more athletic than Lonzo. So I think that allows him to be more, creative on the court, and get his teammates in the right position. So yeah, I have Melo being a rookie of the year.
Interesting that none of us picked the top pick. It shows that we've certainly done our research.
Bad pick. It was a bad pick.
I like Edwards. I fear that he's going to be one of those like inefficient kind of scorers at the next level, but I do like his game. I mean, it'll be interesting. So 2 votes for Melo, 1 vote for James Wiseman, and 1 vote for Obi Toppin. We're gonna go
one honorary vote for Patrick Williams.
Yes. I will.
You know what? I tell you what. I've been watching YouTube clips of him playing against not just in preseason games, but against just like in just pop-up scrimmages. He's been good. He's been good.
Baby Kawhi.
That's
what we're hoping for.
Woo, best case. That would be enormous. That would be enormous. All right. With that being said, we're gonna move on to our next award pick. We're gonna go into most improved. Let's go to most improved. And I'll start with Ronnie on this one. Ronnie, who do you got?
So most improved. I think we're gonna see early on this year whether or not I'm right. I think within the first week or so, I think we're gonna be able to tell. My pick is Jamal Murray. I think that we really got to see what this guy was capable of in the bubble. And he's a guy who, I had to go and look at it, has never averaged over 20 a game in his career. He's never averaged over 19. He's like mid 18s a game. And while that's good, I don't think that's indicative of his offensive skill set at all. Especially when you have someone like Jokic, who's such a good passer, and they kind of spread the ball around a lot, and you would just expect him and his skill set to, I would think, put up bigger numbers than that. And I think that he's going to this season, especially when you look at when it came to crunch time in some of those playoff games and some of those games in the bubble, the ball wasn't in Jokic's hands, it was in Jamal's hands. And as good as Jokic is, I think that one of his big deficiencies is, I don't think he's the guy you go to when you need a bucket down to a couple seconds left on the clock. I think it is Jamal. He's the shot creator. He's the guy who can just go get you buckets. And I think he's going to go ahead and do that this season.
He's got ice in his veins. He was probably the most entertaining player I think to watch in Orlando. Him and Jokic, they truly did put on a masterpiece for all of us fans to watch. So I like the pick.
That's a good pick, and he really got his name out there too. So that's definitely going to help him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. Let's move on to Matt. Matt, who is your most improved player for 2021?
I also had Jamal Murray.
Sir.
I think we in previous years we've seen glimpses of what Jamal Murray can do, but I
Yes.
think in the bubble we've seen him like not at his max, but I think like that he showed what he's like all about. And I feel like I don't know, he played to his best. Now obviously it wasn't to the outcome that he wanted or the Nuggets wanted. But I think it was a message for the NBA. Because I feel like this year he's gonna come correct and he's gonna ball out. And the Nuggets roster, like this year, is gonna help tremendously. Not only him, but I think as a team as itself, they're gonna I think I have him 4 or 5 in my opinion, like in the West. But um, yeah, he's a talented guy. He can pass, he can shoot. He gets everybody involved, and I think that's what you need, especially in the West, to go the distance. So I got Jamal Murray.
Just
Who-
real quick
Yep.
before we move
Sorry,
on.
go. Mhm.
I just gotta give my love out there for Jamal. I think that we always knew he could shoot, but really where he took his game to the next level is finishing at the rim
Yeah.
and finishing through contact. That's not something that I thought he had in his bag. I thought he was just a guy who was like okay with putting up like contested jumpers and like he could get to a step back and he could sink some of them, but he wasn't a guy who was gonna go finish in the lane and rack up free throw attempts. And I think that's really where I think he's gonna take the biggest step again this year. I think he's gonna be getting in the lane, doing some crazy ass layups, getting to the line. And like I said, I'd be surprised if he averages under like 23, 24 a game. I just think he
Wow.
has that scoring ability.
That's a lot.
No,
That-
I'm glad you said that because and I like to me as a point guard he drives to the hole smart. And like I said this to Kyle numerous times about Russell Westbrook. I feel like at times he forces driving into the paint, and at times he if we're talking OKC, he's had Steven Adams. There was no need for him, and he's not a real big guy. But I think Jamal Murray does it in a way where it's not forced and it's not too much. He does it when he has an opportunity and he makes it count. So
All right, 2 votes for the Bergen and Canadian out of Kentucky. Good picks. I appreciate that. Let's go to Josh. Who do you got as your most improved player?
So I think that most improved by definition is like the hardest one to predict because it's supposed to be somebody that surprises us. Like they're most improved from what you expect to happen. I can only think of one example where it was kind of predictable who's going to win it, and that was C.J. McCollum way back when Wesley Matthews left the Blazers. I think that was the only one where we actually saw it coming. But this is kind of like a crapshoot for me. But I went with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I think
He's
that
nice.
I think that the players who typically win this award is from when they go to very good to, in the eyes of voters, like a star. And I think that's what Shea has potential to do. I think last season playing alongside Chris Paul, people were like, "Oh, this guy's pretty good. He's only getting better. Second year, he's only improving." But typically with most improved, you don't really win it in your second year. And I think that considering Chris Paul's gone and they're not really going to be a competitive team, I think he has all the opportunity in the world to, do whatever he wants out there and be that lead guard kind of guy. And I think that if he can get his numbers up from, I think he averaged, the biggest problem is going to be that he already improved last season. But I think if he can go from like that 19 point per game area to like averaging like 25, 5 and 5, or something along those lines, I think that he'll really be in contention. Again, this is who I think is going to win the award. I think that that'll definitely get him some recognition. I think he might make an all-star team or something. But yeah, I think Shea is my pick in terms of like who I know historically wins this type of award. But yeah, I don't think the Thunder are going to be very good. I don't think they really care because they just stockpile assets anyways and just have everybody's draft pick for the next 35 years. But yeah, I think Shea has a prime opportunity to win the award if people don't already think he's improved enough. So yeah.
Yeah, that franchise just like they should rename the NBA draft as the Oklahoma City Thunder draft for at least the next 6 or 7
The
seasons.
2021 Oklahoma City draft.
It's just absolutely unreal. Now, I like all those 3 picks. My pick is Michael Porter Jr. So I'm in direct competition. So yeah, I'm in direct competition with Matt and Ronnie. First, I just want to say that I think Jamal Murray would be a very good pick for this award. The only reason why I have Porter over a guy like Murray is because Porter, especially in the bubble, he showed, because that I'm not sure how much he played before the bubble. I like he probably barely played before Orlando, if at all. I think the bubble really showed us that he can be, at least right now, maybe like an extremely low grade Kevin Durant. I actually see flashes of that from time to time. Just his shot motion, not saying he's going to be Kevin Durant. I don't think that's going to happen, but just the way that he gets off his shot, just the way that his shot is so pure and buttery. I think that is going to be able to translate to maybe a close to 19, 20 point per game guy potentially this year. I think that he's going to be given all the opportunities in the world, especially with Jeremy Grant gone. I think it's going to leave a space for him to take those shots. Now, he still has a long way to go defensively. He's still he's still not a very good defender, but I think offensively,
one way to put it.
Yeah, I think offensively, I think his back issues hopefully are completely behind him, and he's just, his shot form is just so pure and it looks so natural for him out there. So if Porter can average 19, 20 a game, I think he will win the award. But if Jamal Murray has a season like he did in the bubble, kind of on that same level that I think he might win, I think Shea's also a very good pick just because he's going to be one of those primary guys on that team. But yeah, that's who I got. And PJ.
Kyle, I hate to break it to you, but I don't think second-year players are going to win this award. Well, I can't think. I think Monte Ellis was the last one to win it, and
that could be true.
That's a big point against you there.
That could be true. However, I will say that he's technically a third-year player because he got drafted in 2018. So
fair argument. So it's just that the voters see it that way.
Yeah, that's
red shirt season.
Yes.
Red shirt season.
It's like that whole Ben Simmons like rookie of the year argument with Donovan Mitchell a couple years ago. Yeah, no, that I totally see that point. I just think that Porter's ready to take that next step. So hopefully I'm right. We'll see what happens. Let's move on to let's see here. Let's go on to six man. I think six man is going to be interesting. And I'll start with Josh this time. So Josh, who do you have as your six man?
My six man is Lou. No, not actually Lou Will, but
Lemon Pepper Lou.
But he might as well get two girls himself because this man is a baller. I'm gonna go with this pick. I feel like again you could pick like a million people for six man, but I'm gonna go with Jordan Clarkson. I think that I haven't even seen his name mentioned in this conversation, but I think that based on the profile, again, if players who win this award, it's usually these scoring guards off the bench who just put up like 19 points a game, basically. And actually, Jordan Clarkson is one of the players where my opinion on him has changed quite a bit. A few years ago, I thought he was honestly like replacement level. Like, why do people think this guy is any good? But then now that he's come to the Jazz, he's been getting buckets, and he's basically been their only source of offense on the bench. I think yeah, exactly. And I think he's perfect for that role. Because again, if you look at that Jazz bench, like we all know that they've got good defensive players and role players for a while now. But basically Niang's the only other guy I see in that bench that can produce any offense. And he can pretty much carry your second unit. I think that if he gets the opportunity again, fresh off of signing that extension, I think that he has a prime opportunity to, score those 20 points per game off the bench and take home the Jamal Crawford / Lou Williams official sixth man of the year award. And maybe he can start a streak of winning that award just like they did. So Jordan Clarkson is my pick.
I would let Matt or Ronnie go next, but I'm just going to go next just because I also had Jordan Clarkson.
What?
I honestly
crazy.
And honestly,
yeah.
So this was the award that I actually had the most trouble with, just because I really think that, especially if Dennis Schroeder comes off the bench, which I don't think he wants to, if he comes off the bench with the Lakers, he might have a shot as well. I picked Jordan Clarkson for a lot of the same reasons that you did. I think primarily, the problem with the Jazz come playoff time, especially, is that they don't really generate a whole lot of offense outside of Donovan Mitchell. I think that's been one of their biggest flaws. But having a guy like Jordan Clarkson who can just come off the bench, just ignite that team. I mean, he showed multiple times in the bubble that he's the human equivalent of like those kind of like things you put in, just like those instant, kind of meals. He's instant offense. He's electric. And I think that he's going to have a lot of opportunity as well, just because of like we both said about how there's not a whole lot of guys on that team that can generate their own offense. Combine that with the fact that now that he has that mental security about that $50 million in his head, I think that's just going to free up his game even more. And I think if he averages 17, 18 a game, I think Clarkson has a definitive shot. So I got Jordan Clarkson as well. Let's move on to Matt. Who do you have as your sixth man of the year?
No, yeah, I struggled with this one a lot. But
Not an easy one to make.
yeah, I came down to Montrezl Harrell. Now I feel like at this point we don't know if he's gonna start or not. I don't think he will. But
Should at least.
you're right, right. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a fresh start. Obviously, he's still in LA, but I think being on this championship team and being surrounded by guys who, are stars is going to give him the motivational push to ball out even harder than he was with the Clippers. I think, like I said, a new scenery to an extent. Being around new players and I feel like he's just gonna, because last year he was going crazy with the Clippers. So I feel like nothing in his game is gonna change, but um, being better, and getting the ball open, or to him even more. So yeah, I have Montrez as my sixth man of the year.
All right, Montrez is a solid pick, reigning sixth man of the year. Let's go to Ronnie. Who you
Repeat.
got?
So, like you guys, six man was one that I had to really think about. And I'm kind of going to go off the wall. I'm going to the Atlanta Hawks. Um, and there's a little caveat with this one. They acquired Danilo Gallinari and Bogdan Bogdanovic. I think
I
one of them will start, and the other one will win sixth man of the year.
So your pick is the Hawks white guy off the bench.
Exactly.
It makes
You
sense.
cannot go wrong with the white guy off the bench. No, so obviously they are both very talented offensive players. They are guys who can come in and just get you buckets. Gallinari's been around the block. Like, we know what he's capable of, anywhere from 17 to 20-ish points a game. And I think he's going to play big minutes, whether he comes off the bench or whether he starts. He's going to be penciled in for right around 30 minutes a game. It's just what he does. Bogdan, I think he's more the guy who will hijack an offense. Like, when he comes in, he might take 4 or 5 shots in a row. And I think Gallinari is the guy who will play like within the flow of an offense. So I by that logic, I would kind of lend to Gallo starting, but Bogdan coming off the bench. But I think whoever ends up coming off the bench is going to be spoon-fed. Like, whether you have Trey or you have Rondo handling the ball, like, you're going to get good shots. Yeah. And we know that both of those guys can take and make tough shots. So I just think I kind of wanted to go a little bit off the wall, because there's a little bit of fatigue with like the Trez, Lou, even Jordan Clarkson. Like, we know what those guys are. Both of these guys are in a new situation, and I'm just kind of excited to see how it pans out. So I wanted to go with give some love to the Hawks.
Yeah,
that's honestly not. Oh, yep. Sorry, Josh. Go.
I love both those players. As I mentioned, I think the Bucks really missed out on Bogdan. I love both those players. And the person I almost went with, but I felt he was a little too popular of a pick, was Danilo Gallinari. And again, like, the hardest thing to predict is who's going to start, who's going to come off the bench.
Really.
That's why this award's so hard to pick. But yeah, Danilo was number 2 for me. So
I just love how the Hawks, their whole offseason, I think, was very creative. Yeah. They really improved, and I think they're going to contend for at least maybe like a lower level ish playoff spot. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I think with Trae Young and all those guys down there, I think they're going to be a really fascinating team to watch. I think Rondo especially is going to be a huge mentor for a guy like Trae Young. So that'll be fascinating.
We know Ronnie loves him.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So for our final two, we're gonna lump them into one thing, just to save some time for our favorite Bulls of 2010 segment. So the two awards that are arguably the most publicized, Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. So let's go with Matt. Matt, talk about who your Defensive Player of the Year is, and then talk about who your MVP is. Save the best for last.
Defensive player of the year, I got Anthony Davis. Um, I feel like last year he came in second, I believe.
I think he did.
So I feel like that again, him knowing that coming this year, knowing that in his head, he can play 10 times harder, and being a champion, that's just gonna make him work even 10 times harder because he doesn't want to be that guy to do it once and then choke the next year. So I feel like he has something on his back to kind of work for. MVP Giannis. We talked about him earlier in the podcast.
Free time.
And I think he's after getting this huge deal, he's not going to back off. He's going to give it his all. Just because, like I say, he doesn't want to be like kind of sort of Anthony Davis. He doesn't want to have this aura around his head and you guys just paid him all this money and now he didn't do none of that. So I feel like that's kind of going to help the motivational process into him balling out and winning the MVP.
All right. Giannis winning 3 straight MVPs. That's interesting. Let's go to Ronnie next. Ronnie, who do you got as your Defensive Player of the Year and then your MVP?
So Defensive Player of the Year, I kind of bouncing back and forth between two guys. But a guard hasn't won it in a really long time. And we've been talking about this guy all offseason. So I'm going to go with Drew Holiday.
Wow.
I think that he has been like the most talked about offseason acquisition by any team. Like Drew, people that watch ball like know that Drew is a great defender and a really good even offensive player. It's kind of gone under the radar because he's been on some like shaky Pelicans teams. But I remember like watching 76ers Drew against the Bulls, like rookie Drew.
Rip.
And like he's always been that dude. And so I just think that like playing with Giannis, they're going to be on like a top one. Really, they're the favorite for the 1 seed in the East. And if Drew can just play his usual style of defense, locking up like best player on the other team, best perimeter player on the other team, night in, night out, and they can do it for a 1 seed, I think he's going to be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. MVP, I am going with my man Kevin Durant. Y'all must have forgot how good Kevin Durant is.
Is that because he's on your fantasy team?
No, but he's on my fantasy team
chicken and egg
he's
kind
going to
of
win
thing
it.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, so KD, I thought that he was kind of taking that mantle from LeBron as best player in the league, especially the last year in Golden State when he ended up tearing his Achilles in finals. A year of basketball without Kevin Durant has been sad, man. Like we had a lot of good things going on last year. Zion's rookie year, Giannis, AD, guys popping up like Bam and Ingram that you weren't really sure was going to happen. But man, I miss watching Kevin Durant play basketball. And so I'm very excited to watch him. They, in my opinion, I think they are going to give the Bucks a serious run for their money for the East. I just think that the surrounding players are too good, but I don't think that AD was my other kind of pick for MVP, but I just don't know if they're going to play enough games, him or LeBron. I think that they kind of know what they got on that team. They know that they got better as a team, and they're just kind of going to sit back and wait till the playoffs. But I think that this Nets team does not know how things are going to work out. And so they're going to have to work through some games, work through some struggles. And I think KD is going to have to play pretty much all of the games. He might get a couple of days of rest here and there, but I think between him just being back, being healthy, and him playing a lot of games, that he's going to come back strong and win that MVP.
Yeah.
I miss Kevin Durant too. It's been
Yes.
way too long. He's my second favorite player of this generation. So I definitely agree with that. Josh, defensive player of the year and MVP. Who you got?
So I think I remember Matt saying that, oh, we all know Jimmy Butler is like that one star in Miami that we all know about it. Like he's the guy in Miami. But
Right.
I actually think that he is not the best player in Miami. We love Jimmy Butler, but I think Bam Adebayo is the best player in Miami, and he's going to be the defensive player of the year. I think that he's just again, Kyle was talking about fits the modern profile of an NBA player. I think Bam Adebayo is exactly that. I think he's like the most well-rounded big man outside of Nikola Jokic in terms of his ability to finish, his ability to pass the ball, rebound, block, switch onto screens. Basically, yeah, his switchability and just his overall defensive presence. I feel like I don't know if he is the best defensive player, but I think that he definitely has a chance. I think he will win it this year, and I think that Giannis is really the only other guy that I think has a switchability, even if Anthony Davis may be the best defensive player in the league. So yeah, honestly, I think it's going to come down to Bam or AD. It's really a narrative thing, but I think Bam really showcased what he's got on his profile in the bubble. And I think that's really going to help him moving forward. And if he's super young as well. So if he continues to improve and maybe he gets those assist numbers or block and steal numbers up even more, and he's just like a fantasy stud or something, then maybe he'll get that narrative going too. And it'll feel rewarding because he really is one of the best defensive players in the NBA. So yeah, Bam is my DPOY. And then my MVP, I'm surprised this hasn't been picked yet. And it feels kind of obvious in my opinion. And again, I mentioned with LaMelo Ball, it reminded me of this player in terms of the best player was not picked, and he was picked third instead. There were two people above him that got picked that shouldn't have been. And it was pretty obvious going into the draft that this guy is the best prospect. But Luka Doncic is my pick for MVP. I was super high on him in 2018, but I was actually wrong on him in 2018 because I didn't think he was going to be this good. Like I thought he was going to be an all-star level player, but never in my wildest dreams would I think that he'd be an MVP candidate in year 3. And I think he will win the award this year because he's just honestly Harden level at this point where he can completely carry an offense and he just does it in such an efficient way. And every night you just have to game plan for him. And I think that the most important position in basketball right now is your lead guard, whether that's like a Harden or Doncic or LeBron. Somebody who it's 95, 96 in the playoffs and you need a bucket, that kind of player I think is the most valuable. And I think that not only will he have an argument for actually being that player, but I think he'll win it based off of the narrative as well because I think there's going to be voter fatigue for Giannis this year. Sorry, Matt, but I think that 3 in a row is just tough to do in the eyes of the voters.
Yeah.
And I think Harden already got his. I could see Curry making a case for it. But I think Doncic has the most clear case in terms of we know he's going to play a lot of games. He's going to get a lot of minutes. He's going to have the role. It's a really safe pick there. I just think that he has all the tools to be that player, to put up crazy numbers. And I think the Mavericks are going to be better than expected too. So I see Doncic as my MVP.
Real quick, Kyle, I just want to say, if you're picking Doncic as your MVP, where do you have the Mavs seated in the West? Like, how high do they got to get before Doncic can get those votes? Because they don't like to give votes to teams that aren't top 2 or 3.
This is true. Now, to answer the second part of your question, I think the only time that's ever happened that I can remember is when they gave the MVP to Russell Westbrook. In 2017, but that was only because he averaged a triple-double. No one had done that since Oscar Robertson. So that is very true that they usually give MVPs to like top 2, top 3 seeds. I also have Luka as my MVP. My defensive player of the year is different, but I'll get into that in 1 second. I think Luka is ready for it. I think the MVP award is I think more so than any award narrative driven just because it's the one that gets the most publicity. I think Luka really showed that he was an elite top 6 player, maybe even top 5 last year. I think he's ready to make potentially an even bigger jump, not necessarily in stats, but maybe in just his decision making in general. I think he's even poised to make a better a better leap in that in general. And I think that Dallas is going to be, in my opinion, either the 3 or the 4 seed. I think Denver might be the number 1 seed, and we're talking about regular season. I think Denver's depth gives them a chance to be the first overall seed, and if it's not them, it's going to be the Lakers. But I think Dallas is going to be not too far behind. I think Luka gets extra fuel to the flame for his MVP consideration as well. Also because they're not going to have Kristaps Porzingis for potentially the first month, so he's going to have to really carry that team. Not that Dallas is a bad team in terms of their supporting cast, especially after adding Josh Richardson, who I think is a really good player. But he's going to have to be the clear alpha dog for a month. And even when KP comes back, the West is still loaded. So I think Luka is definitely going to be the MVP this year, with Dallas being a lot better than I think people might realize. My defensive player of the year is Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis, the Lakers are just going to get so much press this year, and I think rightfully so. I think from top to bottom, they're the best team in basketball. And people have known for a long time that Davis has been an outstanding defender. I'm not sure if he's ever won one. I could be wrong. I don't remember. Yeah, that might be something too, because people recognize Davis as a great defensive player, but he still has not won the award. And I think that his second year in LA, they're obviously going to be a top 2 seed, I think, in that conference. And we don't know how many games LeBron's going to play. He might be resting a lot of those games, and I think Davis is going to have to carry that team at times. So I think that's going to give even more consideration. I think the defense is going to be good, and I think Davis is going to win it. So that's my opinion. But all right, we've gotten through the awards. We've gotten through the headlines. It's been a great hour and a half of basketball conversation so far. The last basketball thing we're going to talk about before heading into the Post Malone bracket, we are going to be just really quickly going to go over our favorite Bulls of the 2010s. I know Ronnie in particular was really excited about a quote-unquote love letter for his favorite Bulls player. So Ronnie, take it off, man.
So when I saw that you guys want to talk about this, like the easy pick is like Derek or Jimmy, guys who like led the team. But my pick is going to be Joakim Noah. Joakim is my favorite Bull of my lifetime. Joe just every day showed up. He played so hard. He was always a great team player, but I will always remember like how sad it was watching Derek get hurt. And like I was like, do I even want to watch basketball? Like I got no reason to watch. Like I can watch other teams, but I got no reason to watch the Bulls. And then you look out there and you see Joe like getting triple doubles, like getting 7-8 assists, carrying the offense of all things. Like you always knew he was a defensive anchor. Like he won Defensive Player of the Year, but he went out there and was seriously like he was the focal point of the offense for the better part of 4 or 5 months during that one season. And he was stealing MVP votes from like LeBron. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean? The guy was out there.
Third place. He came in third in 2014.
Unbelievable.
He was just out there taking his game to a whole nother level, maximizing his potential as a player, maximizing the team's potential, especially with Rose being out. And it's just the effort that like you wish every player you ever watched played as hard as Joe, and played as smart as Joe, and it made you really proud to be like a Bulls fan at that time, when it was kind of hard to be a Bulls fan. Like there was so much going wrong, and like so much like wasted, I guess you could say, potential. But he still made those teams and those games a lot of fun to watch. And so for that, Joe is definitely my pick.
Yeah, and you just mentioned how like during those seasons it was like tough to like find something to root for the Bulls, because we were so heartbroken by Rose getting injured, and then the return that didn't happen in 2013, and then the return that did happen later that year where he played 10 games and then got hurt. But yeah, it was that season 2013-2014 where I really got into the Bulls the most, and a big part of that was Joakim Noah and just that supporting cast there, where they had that slogan. I have a poster of it. I haven't put it up yet, but it's the next man up poster. It was like Thibs' mantra basically, where like this team didn't really have much talent at all, honestly, but it just felt like one after another. There were new players that would step in every day, and this team somehow got a 4 seed. They got crushed by the Wizards, or they got their hearts broken by the Wizards, of course, and I'm never gonna forget that. But yeah, that team was just, they had so much heart and soul to it. Joakim Noah was the engine behind that. But yeah, I just wanted to go through a few players. I don't have one pick per se, but yeah, Joakim Noah. I also have to mention Kyle Korver. That was before that season.
Give me the
A
hot
good
Kyle
shooter.
Korver. Yeah, I have to mention Kyle Korver because, you know, in terms of real life basketball, I've tried to compare myself to a million different players over the years. Danny Green, Danny Green, Brad Beal, basically any shooter.
Don't tell me you're shooting like Kyle Korver. Do not tell me.
Basically any shooter out there, or 3-and-D kind of guy I try to compare myself to. But the one that people actually did call me in high school during intramurals, they called me Kyle Korver. And then on my sophomore basketball team, they called me Kyle Korver because all I did was shoot threes basically. And I made them, but like that's all I did. And I remember in intramural senior year of high school, I wore, we all had like our jerseys and whatnot, and I had Kyle Korver Bulls jersey as mine. So I really encapsulated what Kyle Korver means to the Bulls franchise and to me whenever I played. I went out there thinking I was Kyle Korver. And so yeah, he has a special place in my heart as a former Bull. But I'll let Matt and Kyle go right after this. But I also have to just give a quick shout out. I don't know if anybody will remember this name, but Mike James is a memorable of mine because he's
Fourth
basically
point guard off the bench.
he's basically he encapsulates, that's my favorite word apparently. He really symbolizes the next man up mindset, because this guy is basically a basketball mercenary where they would literally call him up the day that they needed a point guard, and he would show up to the game and they'd give him a jersey that doesn't even have the name on the back of it. If you look up Mike James Bulls, no name on jersey or something along those lines, you'll see this picture of him in a basketball game with no name on the back of his jersey, just number 8. And yeah, Mike James, he's the ultimate replacement level point guard. I just thought it was so funny that they would sign this guy. They'd sign this guy, cut him, sign him, cut him, sign him, cut him, just every single night basically. And yeah, Mike James. Shout out to Mike James. Shout out to another random Daquan Cook.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Yeah.
Vlad Rad. Marco Bellinelli. Just a bunch of these random players. John Lucas III.
Oh,
DJ
John
Augustine.
Lucas. Yes.
I'm probably saying everybody's names now, but then again, I'm going off on the tangent, but I'm going to end with Tony Snell, the king of getting 32 minutes a game and 0 stats everywhere else. Tony Snell. What a strange person. What a player.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, moving on.
I don't know if you could top that, but
so Tony Snell, Matt being a Pistons fan, this might be an unfair topic, but if you had one of your favorite Bulls from the 2010s, who would that person be?
I got it. I feel like
I think I know who you're gonna say.
The obvious answer is Carlos Boozer. No, I'm playing. No, I gotta go D Rose. D Rose.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we all saw what happened to him. It sucks, but I think like you take that out of the equation, and the dude was is a phenomenal player. He was doing things like when he first got to the league that's like we haven't seen in a minute, and I think that he kind of put the limelight on himself for being like that point guard during that time period. So obviously, living in Illinois, I couldn't watch Pistons game like that, but watching Bulls games and seeing Derrick Rose and growing as a player he became was just like something that was jaw dropping. I felt like you really can't knock that talent, even if you're not a Bulls fan. So yeah,
I credit Derrick Rose with inspiring my love for basketball. I mean, because I really got into watching basketball around 2010, 2011, which is when they had that really good season. And I just remember, 12, 13-year-old me just being in awe of his driving ability and just his ability to just be just such an explosion out there. And I hadn't seen anyone like him, and I still really haven't really seen anything quite like him. I think the obvious comparison is Russell Westbrook, just in terms of his ability to just be explosive. But Rose made it in art form to get to the hoop, and that's what I always appreciate about him. Rose is definitely one of my favorites. I love Luol Deng as well. Deng was that ultimate glue guy. I hate to use kind of like often used terms like that, but he truly was a glue guy. He could give you anything. I think Tom Thibodeau overworked him at, 38, 39 minutes a night. It didn't set him up for the most future success in the entire world, but for a guy to just, guard the best defender, play smart, give you 15, 16 a night, a couple of highlight worthy plays. He was a good dunker too. Deng was one of my favorites. Always was a really good guy to have in the locker room as well. Really good for the community. Really good person. Deng was. It's no secret as to why he was one of the most played players in that frame of time. So I got to give major props to Luol Deng. He was amazing.
It was the end of an era when he got traded to the Cavs. That was a sad day.
Yeah, and then he never played for the Lakers. So it's like, oh well.
He still gets paid by them.
He still does. I bet he's loving that for sure. But yeah, that was a good trip down memory lane. So we've been talking about basketball for over an hour and a half now, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long. That's awesome. We've gone through so much, and we spit so much fiery wisdom. That I'm really happy with how that went. Before we move on to our Post Malone bracket, Ronnie, did you want to stay on or
I'm gonna head it out. I'm gonna get out of here, man. Okay. I'm gonna let y'all do y'all's thing for that.
All right. Well, thank you for being on. That was awesome.
Here,
thanks for coming on.
Man. Appreciate
Thank you guys so much for having me. If y'all ever want to talk ball again, you know where to find me. So
definitely. All right. Absolutely.
All
right.
Definitely.
See you, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Alrighty.
We're gonna move on.
2 hours later, we're on to the last topic.
All right, we're gonna move on to the Post Malone. All right, we're gonna move on to the Post Malone bracket. Who wants to go first? Who wants to reveal their bracket first? Actually,
I call last.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna give it to you because you're the guest, but we can head over to
Okay,
Matt.
I'm the guest. I'll go first.
Okay, all right. Let's do it.
I'm the guest.
All right.
Okay, so I have it. You want me to screen share it?
Yes.
Is that
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. While I pull it up, how's your day today, Kyle?
It was good. I worked and I made my bracket, prepared for the podcast, and ate some good food. It was good.
And how about yourself, Matt? How's your day today?
No, it was good. I finished up some Christmas shopping. Finished the bracket, and now we're here, man. Now we're here.
All right. Let me pull this up.
So just for anyone who's watching this, Josh is he's quite the Post Malone fan. So this bracket should be interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I think my overall favorite Post Malone song was not included in this bracket. I just wanted to put that out there.
Just give it a shout out now, then.
Stay.
Okay, that's a great choice.
Stay is my favorite.
Anyone who knows me knows that I'm obviously I'm the biggest fan of The Weeknd, and if we did a weekend bracket, it'd have to go probably like 64 songs. But I also love me some Post Malone, and Post Malone to me is the epitome of like that party music that you're always gonna remember. Is like, oh, when I hear Post Malone, I'm thinking college, playing beer pong with my friends, basically. So keep that in mind when I made these picks. It's like, what's the most Post Malone songs I can think of?
Okay.
So yeah, here it is. Finally, you can see that, right?
Yes.
Nice and clear. Okay. So I had in my championship, I had Circles against Blame It On Me, but I'll go through the first round at first. So in the first matchup, we had Circles versus Too Young. Circles is just that song where it's super popular, but it's super popular for a reason. It's like when Kentucky's that 1 seed, they're always there. They're always there for a reason. It's going to advance no matter what it was facing there. So yeah, I'm going to go with Circles, just such a versatile song. I'll get into that a little bit more later. But in the 8-9 matchup, this is one I went back and forth on in the true nature of the 8-9 matchup. Pure toss-up. I ended up going with yours truly, Austin Post, in the end. I just feel like it's more of a majestic kind of song, whereas it's got more versatility to it. But taking shots for me is just it's one-sided where you're only going to listen to it as like a pre-game kind of thing. I'm not going to put headphones on and be like, oh, time to go chill and listen to Taking Shots. No, it's when I want to take some shots and get drunk as hell.
Oh my God.
But yeah, Yours Truly is just a masterpiece. I love that song. It's great. And then going down to Rockstar Deja Vu, I think Rockstar is by far the more popular song, and that's definitely one that's been on the radios quite a bit. But I like Deja Vu more. I think Justin Bieber is a great compliment to Post Malone on that track. I think it's just really smooth all around. It's just, I keep saying the word versatile, but I feel like it's a much more versatile song. 21 Savage's verse is decent, but I just think Deja Vu is just a little bit better. And in terms of Take What You Want versus Big Lie is a song that I didn't really get into until recent years. And I really do like it, but Take What You Want, the production on that song is just spectacular. I think we can all agree on that. And I know we all think of it as like Travis Scott's kind of song. Honestly, don't think it's one of his best verses out there. I think Ozzy Osbourne and Post Malone are what make the song as well as the production. But I think it just goes hard in general. That one had to win there. And then going to the top right, I had Die For Me against Saint Tropez. Saint Tropez again is a nice, fun song. It's always a joy to listen to that song. But Die For Me, I kind of see that as the sequel. In my mind, it's the sequel to the Weeknd song "Die for You." I like to play. I like to play those tracks back to back. I don't know why, but that's just how I like to listen to it. I think it's a really good song. I think that there's just a great contrast between all the artists on it. I'll get more into that later. But then in terms of On the Road versus Up There, I had another upset here. I had Up There. That song for me is just it's so like not mysterious, but I just like to listen to it like late at night. For me, it's like for all these songs just mentally in my mind, I'm just like picturing something different. For me, it's like it's winter time, it's snowing out there, everything's just so quiet, and you're just listening to that song. Whereas On the Road, it's not like mid, but I mean it's just an average song in my mind. Even though I've listened to it a lot. That's how all these rankings came about. It's from my Apple Music plays. I'll keep going down. White Iverson versus Blame It On Me. White Iverson. I will always remember this song because it is the song that always reminds me of when I went on my first date in high school. This is the song that was popular at the time.
Nice.
First date I ever went on. This song played. Yeah, so that's always gonna be what it reminds me of. It's a great song. It's well produced. He's got great vocals on it. But Blame It On Me, I just feel like goes hard. It's got great bass levels to it. I just think it just that type of song, that prototype, just always gets to me. And that one just had to win there in the classic 12 upset of the 5 seed. And then lastly, in the first round, I'm kind of losing my breath here. I had Feel Over Paranoid. I just feel like
no pun intended.
That song again. No pun intended, but I feel like Feel is just such a great choice here, and I think it's very indicative of a 4 seed where it feels like it can hang with the big boys, and we'll see how far it goes. Even though you guys can see physically how far it goes. So jumping out of the second round, I'll try to speed it up here. We're getting on like hour 5 now. Circles beats Yours Truly. Circles is just such a dominant song. Take What You Want over Deja Vu. Blame It On Me over Feel. Again, there's just something about Blame It On Me where it's not a popular song, but it's getting hot at the right time. And I've really been listening to it a lot lately. And it's just a song that I can just play and repeat. And it just kind of gets me hyped a little bit. And then Up There, again, it's just a beautiful song. I think it's better than Die For Me, even though I've listened to that more. And yeah, so in terms of my final, I then went with Circles because that song is just amazing. And even though I try to stay out of the mainstream on these choices, Circles is just too good to be beaten.
It's a great song. It's a great song.
But it does Circles in the end because these are my picks and nobody else's. I had Blame It On Me with this current hot streak, winning it over Circles as my number 1 Post Malone song. And
okay.
I think that's a really bold claim there. Circles is super popular for a reason because it's just, it reminds me of, you know how the Beatles always have their songs that people keep playing over and over.
Yes.
Pretty much everyone of different backgrounds enjoys that song. I think Circles encapsulates that. But Blame It On Me.
Too.
It's my choice, damn it, and I'm going with Blame It On Me. So yeah.
Yeah, I like Blame It On Me was a good song. It was a good song.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, that's my pick there.
Interesting. Blame it on me.
Whew.
All right, Matt, you want to
Sir.
go next?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's pull this up.
Mine's probably going to be the biggest, the biggest surprise for you
Big
guys.
shock.
I would say, yeah. So mad about Stay not being on there, though. I love that song. Ugh.
Actually, you can
Rip.
go Kyle, real quick.
You can
I
do
just
a
pulled
write
mine
in.
up.
Okay. Here, I will share mine. All right. So here we go. My Post Malone
Wow.
bracket. All right. So start out. Circles beats Too Young. I agree with Josh. Circles is an amazing song. Yours truly, overtaking shots. I've listened to Yours truly probably more. Deja Vu over Rockstar. I really like Rockstar. I like 21 Savage's verse on Rockstar, but Deja Vu has one of my favorite Justin Bieber verses on it. And I think Deja Vu, just the aesthetic of that song is brilliant. Big Lie, the 15th seed, taking on Take What You Want, the 2 seed. I freaking love
What an
Big Lie.
upset.
Big Lie is an amazing song. Not to say that Take What You Want isn't. I was high on Take What You Want for a long time, and I still am. But Big Lie beats out Take What You Want. Die For Me, taking on Saint Tropez. Close one, but I got to go with Die For Me just because I love Halsey. She's bae. On the Road versus Up There, I got to go with On the Road. I think Lil Baby killed it on his verse. The production on that song is brilliant. White Iverson taking on Blame It On Me. I do like Blame It On Me, but White Iverson is the first Post Malone song I ever heard, and I got to go with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Field taking on Paranoid. I got to go with Paranoid. I feel like I've listened to Paranoid more. I'll skip ahead to the final four just to speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So my final four, my first matchup was Circles or Big Lie. This one I was really struggling over, but Big Lie to me, I feel like I can listen more. I feel like Circles is a very versatile song, but I think Big Lie is even more so just in my personal experience. So I got to go with Big Lie, and then Die For Me. Taking on Paranoid. I think the combination of Future and Halsey was one of Post Malone's most genius ideas of his young career so far. So I got to go with Die For Me. And then in the championship game, Big Lie taking on Die For Me. Big Lie is my favorite Post Malone song. It is a song that you can do literally anything to. Taking a drive, you can listen to it. Going to a party, listen to it. It's such a chill, laid back song that also has such an incredible bass line. Big Lie is the truth.
Honorable mention to Stay though, apparently.
Honorable mention to Stay because Stay would beat out Big Lie. Stay.
So that's the real number one.
Stay is a work of art. But Big Lie in this bracket is my favorite.
Yes, sir. All right. Now let's do this thing. Boom. All right, now I don't have the numbers, and their arrangement may look a little wacky, but you guys can see it. You guys get the point. I'm not gonna go through all of these just to save us on some time, but Circles and Too Young, I got Too Young. I feel like to me it's a classic. Take What You Want in Big Lie, and Big Lie.
Yes, sir.
Me and Saint Tropez, just to me, both of these were good songs, but I feel like how Kyle said about
you do like Saint Tropez.
Yeah, that song.
You definitely like that song, yeah.
Feeling Paranoid, I gotta go Feel just because I mean I'm a big fan of Kehlani. I thought that she added a lot to that song. Taking Shots in Yours Truly Austin Post. Taking Shots. I like the overall feel to it. And yeah, Deja Vu and Rockstar. I agree with what Josh said. I feel that if we're talking features, Justin Bieber was the better feature in comparison to Rockstar. I'm not a huge 21 Savage fan, but I just like I kind of like the theme more of Rockstar, but I wasn't too big on 21 Savage's part. Up there on the road, I thought Meek Mill and Baby killed their parts and then gave that those features a nice cherry on top. And Blame It On Me and White Iverson. White Iverson is a classic. We all love it. We all know about it. But Blame It On Me just was, I don't know. It was more more
Goes hard.
Yeah, and it went hard, but it also told a good story too. And I think it kind of gave more substance than White Iverson. So going down, Blame It On Me was On the Road. On the Road, like I said, I love that song off that album. Rockstar and Taking Shots, gotta go Rockstar. Saint Tropez and Feel, Saint Tropez. You know what I'm saying? The song was hard. Too Young and Big Lie. That's a big lie. You feel me?
You sound just like him.
Pretty sure that was him.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And then Big Lie and Saint Tropez. Come on now, Saint Tropez, easy. And On the Road and Rockstar, On the Road. Now. This is a Post Malone bracket. This is not a Post Malone and features. So that kind of helped me in the process of choosing the winner. So I gotta go Saint Tropez just because that was fully Post Malone and it wasn't any features. So
yeah.
Okay.
We all had choices that were just Post Malone songs as
That's
our
fair.
winners.
Exactly.
So that's good.
Saint Tropez, man.
That's fair. All right. Saint Tropez that was one of my favorite songs off of Hollywood's Bleeding.
Wasn't it the first song off the album? Am I tweaking?
No, it's like it's second. Hollywood's Bleeding. It's the first.
Yeah.
I think it's second.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, the title track's number one.
Let me get your opinion on this, Josh. I don't know if you know, but I'm a big Sean fan, right? And his last album, he had a feature with Post Malone by the name of Wolves. What is your opinion on that song?
You want my sincere opinion on that song?
Yes, sir.
I haven't heard that song.
Oh.
I know. So in 2020 in general, I've not been good about listening to new music. I have listened to a little bit new stuff. Obviously, I get to After Hours, but Don Toliver's album and just
Don Toliver,
Heaven or Hell, and I didn't listen to a whole lot of new music this year, and especially not like songs like that where it's an artist I like, but on another album that I wouldn't really listen to. I know you guys did a review of it, and I feel like I have to listen to it now. But yeah, Wolves, that's right.
Yeah.
You know what, I'll do my homework.
Yeah. Even if you listen to the whole album, just that one song, and it's a visual for it too. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my homework. I will get back to you on that.
All right,
but I guess I'm not a true superstar Post Malone fan if I haven't heard all this.
Come on, Josh. What the hell?
My apologies. I'm not a Posty expert, but I do have Bud Light running through my piss. So.
This was outstanding. So 2 hours and 54 minutes of content.
Man,
this is
brilliant. Shit.
This is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait to upload this. We talked so much about basketball. We talked about major headliners from this offseason. We talked about predictions, and we went through Post Malone, one of the greatest artists of this generation. So that was awesome. So any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we exit?
Man, thank you to our guest that came. I know
yes,
Ronnie had to go, but Josh is still here. Thank you for pulling up to Area 11, and
of course,
it was great having you, man. For being our first guest,
it was a lot of fun. Thank you both for having me. I had to do it, quote unquote, for the culture.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. For the culture.
And I can't believe I don't think it wasn't 250. It was like 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
2 hours. Okay. Even then, that's wow. We went for a while.
We did.
I could have gone into even more detail on the Post Malone bracket, and I think we could have gone into even more detail on a lot of stuff. But there's only so much you can fit to keep people's attention.
True.
Especially when you already go 2 hours. I think we covered a lot. I think it was a really good time.
We did.
And I can't wait to play this back while I'm, ordering shit at Costco. So.
Place of employment.
Sounds fun to me.
All right. Well,
yes,
it was good seeing you both. It was awesome to talk about that stuff. And NBA season tomorrow, baby. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys real soon. Peace.
All right. Bye, guys.